had somebody ask to do a video covering how to practice vibrato, and I've been playing for almost 20 years now, and I admit I really didn't put too much practice into getting the vibrato down as best as I can. And during certain phrases, and depending on what finger I end with on a phrase, if I want to do vibrato, it definitely shows here and there. But I do understand a good way to approach practicing vibrato, and I'll talk about like how I do it now and ways that you can, or really the way to practice doing vibrato. And Tom Hess actually talked about this in one of his lessons, and I thought it was a great idea. So I'm basically going to say to do what he said to do. Now, when it comes to vibrato, you're basically just making a vibration with a note. And it's really like a series of very small bends. So that's a vibrato right there. You're just vibrating the string. That was a very slow vibrato. That one's much faster. And you'll see a lot of guitar players doing that, where they'll just take their index finger and do that kind of quick bendy motion. And that's what it looks like when I'm doing it just my index finger. And I'm basically just kind of doing this little tugging motion back and forth. So I'm like pulling down and releasing. You cannot do that on the high E string though, or else you'll be pulling the string off the fretboard. That's something I just started doing naturally without any real practice or focus on it. I just started to do it. And sometimes what I'll do, if I end on my ring finger, is I'll actually kind of take my arm and do this motion. I'm exaggerating right now, but that's kind of the motion I'm making. I'll do like an actual pull down with my arm. Sometimes I won't even have my thumb on there, depending on what string I'm on, what note I ended with. And you can do this on all the strings except the high E. Again, high E, you just pull it off the fretboard. And using the middle finger, I'll kind of do the same thing that I do with my ring. Just kind of give that arm tug. Now, that may not necessarily be the best way to do it. That's just how I started to do it over the years. When I do vibrato on the high E string though, I'll do a back and forth motion to where I'm sliding my hand left and right. You can also do a vibrato by pushing the string up. So that's just how I approach doing vibrato. Now, in order to have good focused practice with vibrato, gonna use the metronome. You're going to time your really small bends to go along with your click. I would start with eighth notes and work on bending the string like in the middle beats, or like on the up beats, or you could do it when you hit the downbeat. So I'll demonstrate that. Metronome, set at 60 beats per minute. What I recommend doing, let's say you're going to start with your low E string, and we want to start with the index finger. I'm going to time the bends to bend on the downbeat, and then I'll release on the upbeat, so it'll be like a bend, release, up, down, up, down. Of course, the longer the note or the string is ringing out, the harder it will be to continue the sound. So you might want to bend like a few times and then pick it again. So maybe like, or try every 4 bends. And you can do that with all 4 fingers. sounds so good and musical, doesn't it? You can do that on all the strings except the high E string. And what I mean by that is the bending the string by pulling it down. I find that to be the easiest way to do this. To practice doing the high E string, though, you'll have to push the string up, and I do find this much more challenging, especially because I've spent almost 20 years almost always doing a vibrato where I pull the string down to make the bend happen, but you can still practice by pushing it up. Pinky is definitely the hardest, and you can practice having multiple fingers behind the fretting finger. What I mean by that is, let's say you're practicing the vibrato with the middle finger on the high E. You can have your index finger behind it to help you have more control over it. And then you can try 3 fingers down. That's especially helpful if you want a very wide vibrato. And you can do the same thing with all 4 fingers down as well. It doesn't have to be just the high E string you do that on either. It can be the lower strings as well. Now, in order to start speeding up your vibrato, you're going to do what I always recommend, and that's increase your metronome by 5 beats per minute every time you do this correctly. For example, this will be 1 repetition of how I'm going to approach this exercise. So I picked the string once and then I bent it 4 times. So that's 1 pick and 4 bends. 1, 2, 3, 4 bends. Only 1 pick. I'm going to do that 4 times to the metronome at 60 beats a minute. Now bump up the metronome by 5 and do it again. And then you keep doing that until you can't control the vibrato anymore. Doing that will really give you a great sense of control with the vibrato at various tempos. Now, you can also practice the way I demonstrated the high E string vibrato as well with the back and forth motion. In order to do the sideways vibrato, and you don't have to do it only on the high E string, you can do it on any string you want. I just find it convenient to do on the high E string since I can't do that downward bend vibrato that I just demonstrated. I'm doing this by picking the note and it's kind of pushing my hands side to side, and that causes the vibration sound. This is what it sounds like doing it with the metronome the same way I just performed the last exercise. So instead of pulling the string down and bending it on every downbeat and releasing the bend on every upbeat, I'm shifting my hand from one side to the next on every down and upbeat. So I'll shift my hand over on the down and then back to where I was on the upbeat. Another way to approach practicing vibrato is to not just do the 8th note pattern like I just demonstrated, where you have the bend and then release, where you're going like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can do a triplet feel for it. You can also do a 16th note feel for it. So the triplet thing would sound something like this. So the count would be like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... The 16th note one would be 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... And practicing the vibrato with a triplet feel or 16th note feel is just going to give you that much more control over what you're doing during the vibrato. Something else I would do to help improve your vibrato is throw in vibrato during your improv practice. Just go for it. Just start vibrating the hell out of any note that you can and see how it sounds, see how it feels. As far as how high do you bend for the vibrato, usually I'm going about a half step up. Even if the half step up is not necessarily in key, because you're going back to the note that is in key really fast, you can get away with that with vibrato. So it's not like you're trying to bend up really high. You're just creating that kind of a wave sound with the notes during the vibrato. And lastly, you can do vibrato while you are bending, and this definitely takes a bit more time to get the hang of. So when I do a vibrato during a bend, I'm not coming all the way down and then bend back up. I bend up, release a little bit, and then go back up. Let's do another metronome run here with a bend vibrato. And I'm sure you heard the closer to the end of each repetition there, the sound wanted to fade off more and more and more, and that's natural. The slower you go, the more excess noise is going to start creeping in near the end of that bend vibrato, and the more the bend volume is going to want to die off. But the faster you get, the less likely that is going to happen. You can also practice vibratos with chords. Just do the exact same process as the other exercises, and you can work on controlling that as well. Some guitar players will use a whammy bar for their vibrato. Clearly, I cannot do that, and I am okay with that because I cannot stand tremolo systems. That's it. Video's over. Lesson is done. If you like what you saw, I'd appreciate you hitting the thumbs up. And subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have yet to do so. If you would like to contribute to helping lessons like this get made more often, please check out the Mile High Shred Patreon page. There is a link to the website in the video description. You can also help spread the name of Mile High Shred by commenting on the video and sharing the video. Anything you do does help and is greatly appreciated. And always, thank you very much for watching.